Welcome back, Defenders. Today we're going to do the monthly question and answer video. Once a month on the Posts tab, my YouTube channel, I'll put out a question prompt such as this one. Down below you can ask me anything about anything, read each other's questions, and then thumbs up the ones you want me to respond to. I'm going to respond to as many top-ranked questions as I can. The cutoff for today's video is 90 thumbs up. Thank you so much to everyone who left a question or read each other's questions. And I'm going to do my best today. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of questions that do not have answers or do not have good answers. But I'm going to try my best for you guys. This is the top-ranked question from Symmetric Sounds, 239 thumbs up. Does the recent scandal involving Steve Witkoff make him a traitor to the United States in the way that he is clearly helping the Russians? The leaked communications are damning. This question is from 2 days ago. We got the leaked conversation from Bloomberg between one of Putin's top aides and Steve Witkoff on the phone. But then this story broke yesterday. Make money, not war. Trump's real peace plan for Ukraine. Now, I've not seen the article entirely because I don't want to pay for the Wall Street Journal. This is owned by Rupert Murdoch and I don't want to support his company. But I've seen the summaries and I've seen the screenshots, and it's pretty bad. 3 businessmen, 2 Americans and a Russian. This is Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Kirill Dmitriev. Hunched over a laptop in Miami Beach last month, they were charting a path to bring Russia's $2 trillion economy in from the cold, with U.S. businesses first in line to beat European competitors to the dividends. These are some of the screenshots. Kushner, whose investment fund, Affinity Partners, drew billion-dollar investments from the Arab monarchs whose conflict with Israel he had helped mediate. Gentry Beach, a college friend to Donald Trump and a campaign donor, has been in talks to acquire a stake in a Russian Arctic gas project if it is released from sanctions. Another Trump donor, Stephen Lynch, paid $600,000 this year to a lobbyist close to Trump Jr., who is helping him seek a Treasury Department license to buy the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Beach, Trump Jr.'s college friend, was in talks to acquire a 9% stake in the Arctic LNG project with Novatek, Russia's second-largest natural gas producer, which is partly owned by Timchenko. The Wall Street Journal article details all of these business connections that the Trump administration is trying to make with Russia. They want sanctions to go away. They want the war to stop. They don't care how, so that all of Trump's kids and Trump's campaign donors can start intertwining businesses with the Russian mafia state. It's about corruption. It's about controlling energy. It's about exploiting the loopholes in our capitalist society and even our democracies to empower Russia and the Trump family. I didn't need a Wall Street Journal article to understand all this. It's pretty apparent to me. But your question is Steve Witkoff a traitor to the United States? Yes, he's a traitor to democracy, the Constitution, the rule of law. But Trump is the United States. Trump views himself as America. So as long as Steve Witkoff is doing what Trump wants, then no, he's not a traitor. You would need criminal prosecution in a court or before Congress to get that title. And right now, Steve Witkoff is just following orders. He's doing what Donald Trump expects him to do. And for any possible MAGA people or Trump supporters out there, this is the deep state. Kirill Dmitriev is not just some Russian bureaucrat. The guy went to Stanford for his bachelor's in California and then Harvard University for his master's. This guy, I don't know how long he spent in the United States, but he is one of the most privileged, entrenched, intertwined with America's, capitalist aristocracy. These people all know each other. They don't view themselves as Russian and American. If you're rich, you're rich. You have more in common if you're rich with Chinese businessmen, Russian businessmen, Saudi businessmen than you do with the average American who shops at Walmart. So no, these people don't care about you if you're an average Trump voter. They're just looking to enrich themselves, empower themselves. They don't care about the Constitution, federal law, standard of living, cost of living. They're just looking to enrich themselves. So Steve Witkoff is in on it. I'm guessing he and Trump have known each other for decades, given they're both real estate developers from New York City. But yes, Steve Witkoff is of Jewish descent and Russian descent, and he's been doing business deals with the Russian mafia state for decades. When you put a real estate developer with Russian ties in charge of your peace process with the Russians, shocker, he's going to view the solution to every problem as another business deal to enrich himself and enrich his children. Steve Witkoff's son, Zach Witkoff, is the guy in charge of Trump's cryptocurrency operations. This is the World Liberty financial firm. I mentioned this in my recent video, but in my opinion, America at this point is just one big pump and dump. Donald Trump is doing everything he can to get his supporters to buy into his crypto coins, his crypto businesses. He's then pulling the money out. He views you guys as the bag holders. You're the suckers. And then he takes the real money out and buys assets. Trump business partners want to buy the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's what was revealed. This is about controlling Europe through energy policy, through security policy. There are no values. There are no morals, no ethics. Everything, the world that I've been living in my entire life is gone. We now just have rival mafia states doing business deals under the table, behind closed doors, moving money around, throwing people out windows, killing whoever gets in your way. This is what Russia and the United States both are currently. It's just that Americans don't realize it yet. It's all one big grift. Furious MAGA customers say they got scammed by Trump watches. This was early last year. As president, Donald Trump started selling this gaudy gold Trump watch, and 500,000 Trump supporters put down a $100 deposit to buy this gold diamond watch that would cost something like $2,000 or $5,000. This company that Donald Trump promoted is not fulfilling orders. No watches have been delivered. So this is 500,000 people who paid $100 each. So that's $50 million. And they're gone. It was a scam. There is no Trump watch. Trump has done this to his own supporters dozens of times over the last 10 years, saying there's going to be a raffle in which a Trump supporter can come to Mar-a-Lago and have dinner with Trump if they give $10, $20 in campaign donations today. Trump then never has this person come to dinner. He just scams his own stupid supporters every single time. And they still love him. So, not a good answer. But in general, we'll talk more about this later in the video, but they're not succeeding. They're not very smart. They're doing a really bad job at being a criminal mafia state. And it's wearing thin. We'll talk more about MAGA at a later question. Hi Jake, if you were POTUS, how would you proceed to make sure Ukraine wins and peace will prevail? Well, I would put more sanctions on Russia and I wouldn't care about the consequences. These were pretty effective. Trump last month put sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil, and this has had a devastating impact on Russia's shadow fleet tankers and getting their oil out to China and India. If this was so effective, why didn't we do it the last 4 years? If this is so effective, why don't we do it on Russian banks? Why do we still allow these Russian banks to operate? I understand there's complications with business ties with European and NATO allies, blah, blah, blah. But people are dying. Screw the money. Let's figure this out and force Russia to stop this war as fast as possible. Your next question is, why would Trump do this? We've learned why. Trump is trying to seize these assets for American businesses. The Carlyle Group and Chevron are trying to buy these Lukoil assets in Serbia and Romania and Iraq. So Trump only put these sanctions on Russia's oil companies so that American companies can steal them. And who might be investors in these American companies once all sanctions are lifted? Probably some Russian billionaires. So it's a serpent eating its own tail at this point. What would I do if I was president and I would have Congress do something? Pass sanctions, pass additional military aid, overwhelming force and strength so that every dictator in the world knows if you invade your neighbor, you will be severely punished. Beyond that, it's all about this frozen money. There's only $5 billion of frozen Russian assets in the United States, but that should be gone. That should have been gone years ago, spent to help Ukraine. The real prize is the $210 billion in European banks. There's also the UK, but let's just lump these people together. What's the holdup, Europe? Why are there bankers and bureaucrats in Brussels refusing to release this money? Belgium slams EU plan to use frozen assets for Ukraine. If I was president of the United States, I'd just start sanctioning Belgium. Every week that the European Union refuses to release this money to use it to defeat Russia, I would just sanction an additional EU bureaucrat that opposes releasing the money. You can't travel to the United States. Your kids, your wife can't travel to the United States. We're going to freeze your bank accounts until you vote to release this money to help defeat the Russians. If I was POTUS, I wouldn't care, guys. I don't care about these EU bankers and EU bureaucrats and politicians whose primary focus is to protect Russian money. Can I prove they're corrupt? No. But if I was POTUS, I wouldn't care. Every week, I would start sanctioning more and more EU politicians and bureaucrats. Use the full force of America's economic power against these families and individuals until they release this goddamn money. It's been 4 years. Next question. Dear Jake, how long do you think Russia can hold up economically before collapsing? I believe you mentioned a time frame of around 6 months. Lots of predictions out there. But the thing with economic collapses is nobody knows it's happening until it's happening. There's a panic. Everyone starts selling. In America, I can think of the recent collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Nobody saw that coming until the weekend it happened. The collapse of the Chinese real estate giant Evergrande or something, same thing. Even the government in Syria. Nobody was predicting that Bashar al-Assad's government was going to fall until the week it fell. So you can't really predict these things, but all of the signs are there. Russia's central bank starts selling physical gold from reserves. What have they sold? And before the war, the National Wealth Fund of Russia had 405 tons of physical gold, and now they're down to 173. The Russian ruble is worthless. Nobody else in the world wants it. So if Russia needs to buy something or make something happen, the Chinese, the Indians, whoever, they're demanding gold. And Russia has to pay up. But as you can see, this drawdown, this money is not going to last much longer. As far as Russia's industries and their economy, it wasn't great prior to the full-scale war. You know, it's a corrupt mafia state in which nothing is being properly maintained. But it's gotten way worse. Russia weighs how to prop up Russian railways, which is $51 billion in debt. Russia's railroad monopoly, which employs 700,000 people, they're $50 billion in debt. This is not sustainable. Why is this railway in debt? And it's because the Kremlin has been telling them, keep borrowing money to pay your employees. Once the war is over, we'll figure out what to do with the debt. But this war is never ending. Russian corporate losses surge in 2025 as more firms slip into the red. When it's just ones and zeros on a page and you're moving money around, you can do some pretty impressive things because economies and finances, it's all an illusion. It all comes down to confidence. And at the moment, Saudi investors, Iranian investors, Chinese investors, they still have confidence in the Russian economy, or at least Russia's real assets. And this is where China comes in. China at the moment is financing a lot of the debt. Russia for the last 4 years does not have access to the international bond market. They can't sell bonds on the London Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange and have Western companies and Western firms buy Russian debt at a reasonable rate so that Russia can keep going. But there are the Chinese. China has a lot of money. But the Chinese are not giving money away for free or helping the Russians out of the kindness of their hearts. Russia has physical assets. When you go bankrupt, all shareholder equity is wiped out. The bondholders then become the new shareholders. So if China is the one issuing all of this debt to Russian companies, Russian businessmen, Russian real estate, whatever, when they go bankrupt, the bondholders become the new equity holders. China will inherit, China will get all of these companies, all of these industries, all of these physical hard assets will belong to the Chinese communist state or Chinese businessmen. China wins either way. So that is what is extending Russia's war efforts at the moment. But I don't think it's enough. I don't even think China can save Russia at this point. Keep holding on. Next question is from Mark. Hi Jake, Canadian here. I know there's the Ukrainian Foreign Legion and other international units fighting for and assisting the Ukrainians. But can't NATO and EU members create a volunteer program for auxiliary or behind-the-lines defense roles to free up Ukrainian units? It's been almost 4 years. The Russians' nuclear threats are paper thin, and if it's okay for North Korean units to fight in their war, then it should be okay on our end to intervene in the same way. First piece of news I have for everyone is that the Foreign Legion, the International Legion of Ukraine, is disbanding. Their members are being sent to other units, and the Foreign Legion is not its own thing anymore. I just think it was too hard having so many people from different countries with different languages in the Ukrainian military hierarchy. There's a war going on. So I think there was a lot of confusion, a lot of disparity, and I don't think the International Legion is continuing as it was. But there are lots of contractors in Ukraine. Your question is, why aren't there auxiliary or volunteer units? And there are. They're just not uniformed soldiers. I served in the United States military on active duty for 6 years, and anything that could be privatized to, we call them GS civilians, the military wanted to do it. They don't want people in uniform serving on active duty getting killed. That's national news. But if a contractor or a private citizen gets killed, that's not a national tragedy. That won't make the national news usually. So there are French contractors, British contractors, American contractors, and 90% of them are military veterans with military experience and training. They've just officially gotten out of their active duty service, and they're now making more money as a private contractor helping Ukraine. This article is from last November. Biden allows U.S. military contractors into Ukraine. Pentagon allows U.S. military contractors to fix weapons in Ukraine. They're there. They're doing stuff, but they're not wearing the American flag on their shoulder. They're not wearing the French or the British or the German flag on their shoulder, because then you represent the nation. Whereas if you're just wearing a hoodie or a nice suit, you're representing the private company that sent you. That's the difference. What do I argue? And this is already war. This is not an existential war threatening the United States. It's an existential war threatening democracy in Europe. So I've been saying for 4 years that EU countries, on a country-by-country basis, obviously NATO collectively is not going to make a combined decision, but if Poland wants to send their military to Ukraine to guard the Belarusian border, and then this frees up Ukrainian troops to go to the front lines, that should have been done years ago. Is there any reason why Finnish troops can't guard the border with Transnistria to free up Ukrainian troops to go to the front lines? I wish, NATO forces, NATO countries were sending their doctors, cybersecurity experts, trainers, maintainers, logisticians. These are auxiliary behind the front lines jobs, but they won't do it because there's no political will in Europe to actually fight. Just being honest, guys. I understand the Baltics, the Nordics, the UK, they've been fantastic. But for the rest of Europe, they've kind of been asleep for 4 years. Next question. Garry Kasparov made some incredibly powerful points about Ukraine being the last bastion against the war reaching the EU, and how they were the only country actually fulfilling NATO's mission, while other countries argued about whether they should even be a member. Is anyone in the EU listening? Why do they stand by while border crossings into the Baltics are being blown up? I did share this clip from the Halifax Security Forum. This was in my update video 4 days ago, but this clip has gone viral. I did show it first, but this has now been spliced up and shared on every social media platform, getting lots of views. Garry Kasparov speaks for me. His frustration, his emotion. If you watch this clip and you follow this channel, he sounds like us. You feel it. I felt it. So I'll link the Instagram clip from United24 down below if you haven't seen it, but he speaks for me. And I can't answer your question because you asked, is anyone in the EU listening? And I'm not European. I'm American. We're worse. America right now is doing worse. We're not helping at all, really. Donald Trump is just selling weapons for profit. But yes, the European Union is having this internal battle. What is more important to the European continent? Their security or cheap fossil fuels? Russian money. That's a choice for every European. Do you care more about your democracy and your freedom, or do you care more about cheap energy and the profit you make from Russian investments? This has never made sense to me for 4 years. The economies of Germany, the UK, France, and Italy are all larger than Russia. Spain has the same size of economy as Russia. Europe has never needed the United States or Canada or Japan or South Korea or Australia, New Zealand, to help them win. Europe for 4 years has had the resources. There's just no political will. And I can't speak for Europe. I can't yell at the Europeans because who am I to throw stones as an American? But everyone is failing Ukraine right now. Nobody is doing what's needed to make Russia stop this war. Next question. Hey Jake, I'm Lithuanian and we know what Russia is. We were occupied 50 years in the Soviet Union, and in 1991 we got our independence because it was in our hearts. We joined the EU, we joined NATO to ensure our independence from Russia. But now some people in my country are worried that, will NATO protect us? What are your thoughts about this? Can we trust our partners in these days situation? The United States is not going to help Europe. If Russia attacks Finland, attacks the Baltics, attacks Poland, attacks Moldova, Romania, the Caucasus, Donald Trump will tell the United States military to do nothing, to stand down, to let the Russians win. Donald Trump this entire time, for the last 10 years, he has been on Russia's side. He loves Putin. He worships this man. I've never seen Donald Trump this giddy or excited for anything, aside from when he got to see his hero get off the plane in Alaska so they could spend some time together. That's how much he loves this man. So no, I'm sorry, the United States is not going to help. U.S. to cut military aid for Baltic states. Donald Trump has instructed the United States military to abandon the Baltics. This is official U.S. policy. European countries near Russia puzzled by U.S. plans to cut defense funding. Baltic states ask U.S. Congress to uphold military support. Nope. Trump wants to do business with the Russians. He wants his kids and his campaign donors to intertwine America's economy with Russia's economy to create one giant mafia state. I'm not holding back anymore, guys. This is the truth. So to my friends in the Baltics, have your evacuation plan ready to go. Russia is going to invade you guys at some point in the future if Ukraine cannot hold. Now, will other European countries come to your aid? Poland, Germany, Sweden, Finland, the UK? Maybe. If they have the political courage. Next question. Hi, Jake. Is there any chance that Ukraine can take back Crimea? I ask because they are going after so much military equipment there. I live in hope. Thank you for your program. Take care. Yes, because when people say that Russia can't collapse, they're just ignoring history. Based on historical precedents from the last 110 years, the country most likely to collapse is Russia. And people just forget about the Eastern Front and what happened in World War I. It was 110 years ago, but this is significant because it involves Russia. These were the front lines in October of 1917. Nobody predicted that the Tsars were going to fall. Nobody was going to predict the Russian Empire would collapse. But by, let's see here, we'll jump ahead to December 1917. Russia is basically in civil war. This is the nationalists versus the Bolsheviks, and the Germans are just kind of waiting. This is the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the German Kaiser. But within a couple months, or let's see here, let's jump to June of 1918. How did the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians all of a sudden capture all of this land and all this territory, including Crimea? And it's because the Russian Empire collapsed. Their soldiers were not being paid. People in the capital city of Moscow were starving. If this scenario plays out again, if Russia has a financial collapse, soldiers are not being paid, things back home are getting worse, then yes, Ukraine will easily get all their territory back because that territory doesn't belong to Russia. It never did. I do think this is going to happen, guys. I think something terrible internally is going to happen for Russia, political or economic. Russia's soldiers will not be paid, they'll refuse to fight, and they'll go home, because none of those people are from Crimea or the occupied territories. Most of Russia's soldiers on the front lines are from rural Siberia, and they're going to go home to their families eventually. Next question. Will there be justice served in the United States after this nightmarish regime? Yes and no. Trump escaped justice for all the crimes he committed in his first term. He refused to peacefully transition power after losing a Democratic election. The whole 2020 election was stolen nonsense. I can prove to you it's BS. If there was any truth to any of the lies about the 2020 election being stolen by Joe Biden and the deep state, then Congress, under the Republicans, under Speaker Johnson, would be producing the evidence. They'd be doing an investigation, but they're not, because it's all lies. But Trump has evaded justice for all of his crimes on January 6th. Georgia prosecutor confirms final criminal case against Trump is now over. The Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump is a king. He is above the law. He is immune from all criminal prosecution. He can kill whoever he wants. He can do whatever he wants. When you're president, you are above the law. You are free from the constraints of federal law and justice. That's how insane things in America have gotten. This is a defining moment of my life. I'm never going to forget this. We did not have a peaceful transition of power for the first time in this country in over 160 years. People died this day. Millions in damages. And the first thing Donald Trump, when he got into office, is he pardoned all these people. Everyone who hit a cop, assaulted a police officer, sent, these police officers to the hospital, stole stuff from our Capitol building, defaced offices, threatened to kill people. All of these Trump supporters who did all of these terrible things, violent criminals. Trump pardoned them all. Trump continues using the presidential pardon power to protect anyone willing to commit violence for him. These are the brown shirts. These are the people who are going to just start shooting anyone who opposes Trump and his agenda. And Trump will protect them. He won't prosecute them. He'll pardon them if he can. State violence is legal. Assaulting police officers is legal as long as you do it to benefit Trump and his fascist regime. This really is all the fault of Merrick Garland. He was the Attorney General under Joe Biden, and he did not want to prosecute Trump or any of his cabinet members or supporters. He was hoping Trump would just die of old age or retire and just play golf at Mar-a-Lago for the rest of his life. So for the first 2 years of the Biden administration, they just ignored all the crimes. They didn't prosecute anything. And then once it became evident Trump was coming back, then the Justice Department started bringing cases forward. But it then became a run-out-the-clock game. As soon as Trump won the election, all of the cases have been dropped or dismissed. There will be no accountability for all the crimes he's committed. Will there be accountability in 2028 once Trump is gone? We need it. We need public trials. We need all of these people like Steve Witkoff and his corrupt family to be exposed, to be investigated, to be prosecuted, to be publicly shamed for betraying American values, betraying democracy. It's coming. It has to. The alternative is that the United States just becomes a impoverished, shitty, fascist government comparable to Russia. And I don't want to live in that country. I'm never going to stop, guys. People need to wake up if you're American. Next question. I'm Ukrainian American with the entire family still living in Ukraine and not planning to escape, although they could come stay with me in the United States. My parents keep reminding me that the EU still buys Russian oil and gas and spends billions while the other hand is helping Ukraine. It seems absurd that they still haven't replaced Russian crude and gas. Why do you think the EU is still doing this, and when will they stop financing Russia? Thank you for your everyday thorough research and reporting on this stupid war, and thank you for supporting Ukraine. Anna from Ukraine is from my home university, and I'm so glad you collaborate with this brilliant and intelligent lady. This is true. EU spends more on Russian oil and gas than financial aid to Ukraine. Europe is estimated to have bought $22 billion, or euros, of fossil fuels from Russia in 2024, while only giving Ukraine $19 billion in support. The European EU, NATO countries, they're giving more money to Russia than they are to Ukraine currently. That's insane. But it's because Europe does not have fossil fuels. Here's the map showing proven oil reserves. You got Saudi Arabia looking very black there. Here's Venezuela. This is why Trump wants to invade Venezuela. The United States has decent reserves, so does Canada, Russia. But Europe? The UK a little bit, Norway a little bit, but the rest of Europe is pretty dry. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of money and a lot of powerful forces to keep it this way. They do not want renewable energy and alternative energies succeeding. Donald Trump at the moment is saying that all windmills in America have to be torn down because they kill birds. They confuse whales. They look ugly. But it's about controlling energy. If you control energy, you control governments, you control society, you control people. Germany has shut down its last 3 nuclear power plants, and some climate scientists are aghast. This is self-suicide for the German state. I've never understood this. The Russians were funding the environmental movement in Germany to convince the German government to abandon their nuclear power stations, to go back to burning natural gas through the Nord Stream pipelines. So the Russians were setting this up for 20 years, getting the European continent to give up their best source of power, nuclear power, so that they could be dependent on Russian oil and gas exports. And even though this war has been going for 4 years, Europe is still asleep, and they will not embrace the only thing that can save the European continent, which is nuclear power. There is, of course, one exception to this, and this is France. France is all in on nuclear power, and I think something like close to 88% of all power generation in France is nuclear power. They've also got hydroelectric, they've got renewables, wind and solar. But France only uses a very small amount of LNG or fossil fuels. To anyone watching this, I know I'm going to get comments. What's your response? If France can do it, why can't Germany do it? Why can't the UK do it? Nuclear power technology has advanced greatly since Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island, and we've learned there are some places you can't build nuclear reactors. This is Fukushima in Japan. Don't build on a fault line, don't build next to an active volcano. But everywhere else, the European continent is pretty docile geologically. But Europe continues to hang itself, shoot itself in the foot, and Germany is the biggest offender of them all. Now, the only arguments you can make for me against nuclear power is you don't want nuclear waste accumulating. This is plutonium. Plutonium is not a naturally occurring element. Uranium is the end of the naturally occurring elements. Plutonium is only created as a byproduct of nuclear power. Plutonium can then be used for nuclear weapons. But France has figured out what to do with their nuclear waste, and I think Germany can do it too. The UK can do it. Denmark can do it. Sweden can do it. I trust the Europeans to safely dispose of or safeguard their nuclear waste from nuclear power. Do I trust Iran? No. We don't want nuclear power proliferating in autocracies, because then they'll be tempted to use this plutonium to make atomic weapons. That's the argument against nuclear power. With the Epstein files going out and Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning, things are looking bad for MAGA. Do you think this is the reason why Russia wants this peace deal done? Because they know Trump's time is almost up. Yeah, there could be some urgency from Russia because MAGA grows weaker every day, and they want to secure some kind of deal before Trump becomes irrelevant. But this is a pretty wild timeline we're all living in. If you were to ask me a year ago whether or not Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene would be fighting with each other, And then Marjorie Taylor Greene rage quits Congress, just resigns. This is crazy. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a grifter. She's an opportunist. She went into Congress 5 years ago, working class, not very wealthy, but because she understands social media and the outrage generation of revenue from whatever, she's leaving Congress with millions and millions and millions of dollars. After just 5 years of making fun of people and pissing everyone off. But she is making sure that she leaves Congress with the pension. If you serve in the House of Representatives for 5 years, exactly 5 or more, and you're over the age of 60, you then get to collect a government pension for the rest of your life, which will be worth tens of millions of dollars if she lives to be like 90 or 100. She's getting the last laugh. It was all an act. Nothing she said I think she actually believed. She just understood how to get elected to Congress and then get rich, telling MAGA supporters what they want to hear. Insane stuff. But I think this is where Donald Trump and MAGA are going to get their first blow to the shin, and I think more members of Congress are going to resign. This is Jake Sherman, journalist with Punchbowl News. A few other Republican members messaged over the weekend saying that they, too, are considering retiring in the middle of the term. This is relevant because Speaker Johnson only has a 2-seat majority in the House of Representatives. If more Republicans, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, rage quit Congress and resign, then the Democrats are going to take the majority. If the Democrats have a majority in the House of Representatives, they can launch investigations. They can subpoena. We'll have half of 1/3 of our government functioning again, doing its job to hold Trump's mafia family accountable and try and slow them down. This is going to happen next spring. Either more Republicans will resign, or there will be special elections in which Democrats are going to win in unexpected places. Democrats' chances of flipping Republican seat in Tennessee gets a huge boost. This is Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. I can't remember why this opening occurred. Maybe Trump picked someone to be in his cabinet. I can't remember who had this seat before. But Trump won this district by 22 points last November, and now it's a dead heat. The Democrat and the Republican in this special election are now neck and neck. This woman might win. Her name is Afton Bain, and they're calling her the AOC of Tennessee. That name should not stick. I don't know anything about her. This is the 7th Congressional District in Tennessee. If by any chance you live in this district and you want to vote next Tuesday on December 3rd, please go vote. We need to win everything possible. We need to accumulate as much traction as we can going into the 2026 midterms to stop the Trump crime family. And we've got momentum. For anyone who hates Donald Trump, Trump's approval rating has now dropped to 36%. This is the latest Gallup poll. But all polling of Trump consistently shows him in the low 40s, high 30s, where he enjoyed like 56% approval a year ago. Lots of reasons, lots of factors. I'm sure Russia and Ukraine is part of it. But every time Trump's approval rating drops 1 percentage point, that's 14 million Americans. Every time Trump drops 1 percentage point, 14 million American voters who used to like him now say this guy sucks. He doesn't represent me. I don't understand what he's doing, and I no longer approve of it. For my non-American friends, I don't know what to say to you guys. America has no excuse. I have no excuse. Last question will be from Peter. As a European, I really don't understand U.S. policy. A majority of Americans support Ukraine and view Putin as an enemy. How come the Congress cannot vote for sanctions against Russia? And why can't Trump and the government see that it would be advantageous not to support Putin and Russia? If Trump is too much in opposition to the Americans, he would lose big time in the midterms. Yeah, Trump doesn't care. He's just going to lie. Grocery prices are up, and he just says to everyone grocery prices are down. He just lies. He just makes everything up. So when his approval rating goes down, when we have record turnout and record protests here in America, he just says all the protesters are being paid by George Soros and the deep state. Your question is, why won't congressional Republicans do anything? And it's because they're all afraid of losing their seat. The reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning is because she knew she would lose the primary. Most members of Congress don't fear the general election. They live in safe states or safe districts. They only fear being primaried by a more extreme candidate. And Donald Trump, for the last 10 years, has purged the Republican primary, the Republicans in Congress, of anyone willing to challenge him or question him. And he does this with the primary process. If you tell Trump no, if you are not on board with his criminal enterprise, then he finds somebody in your district to run against you in the primary. You're going to lose. And then it's a safe seat, it's a safe district. Even if the Trump-endorsed candidate loses to a Democrat, Trump still views that as a win. He just wants anyone who questions him or challenges him to be eliminated. Democrats sweep key races in 2025 election. This was earlier this month. This was November 5th, and people have already forgotten this. We're still having free and fair elections here in America. Trump and MAGA, people like Stephen Miller, they want to create this fascist state comparable to Russia. We don't have free and fair elections anymore, but they don't know how to do it. Trump is so stupid. He only appoints people to important positions who are dumber than him. And these just aren't the guys to convert America into a corrupt mafia state comparable to Russia. Kash Patel is an idiot. Kristi Noem is an idiot. Pete Hegseth is an idiot. So Trump and MAGA might have had a chance of succeeding a year ago if they actually picked competent, hardworking people who would corrupt the American state, subvert our elections, tilt the scales, create a one-party permanent majority in everywhere. But they're so stupid, they can't do it. Shocker, when you put podcasters and social media influencers in charge of every agency, they spend all their time on podcasts and posting stuff on social media, but they don't actually do anything. Pete Hegseth doesn't actually do anything. Kash Patel doesn't actually do anything. I'm not laughing. This is actually really tragic for America. I do think the most likely scenario before the 2028 presidential election is Trump is going to die of natural causes. A stroke, a heart attack, cancer, I don't know. But he is clearly failing in health. His body is covered in bruises. He's got these swollen cankles. Trump can no longer walk in a straight line. There are all these videos on social media. Whenever Trump walks straight or tries to by himself, he can no longer maintain his internal balance. There's something internally wrong with his brain, probably the result of a minor stroke that he had that was kept quiet a couple months ago. But he's going to die at some point in the next couple years. And given how much time he spends on camera in front of reporters, this is probably going to happen for public viewing. You're going to see it happen. I'm going to see it happen. And once he's dead and J.D. Vance becomes president, nobody's going to talk about him. Nobody's going to mention him. Everyone's going to try and transition to something new and just pretend like he never existed. That's what J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, once they get control of MAGA, are going to do. because no one's going to want to be associated with all of the criminal and terrible stuff that he did over the last 10 years. If you made it this far in the Q&A, thank you so much, everyone. You're a super fan. And if you want to learn more, my thoughts, I'll link this podcast down to a smaller pro-Ukraine channel. This is Talk for Ukraine. This is Christoph Mueller. He's a German citizen, lives in Germany. He invited me on his podcast. We spoke for 46 minutes. He asked questions just about the American system and my thoughts about what's happening with information exchange. The world we live in today is not the world we lived in even 10 years ago. Social media has changed everything, and I'm sorry, we're not going back. This is the new landscape. If we want to survive, we have to adapt. That's the point I was trying to make in this podcast, but I'll link it down below. For everyone else, thank you so much for making it this far. I really appreciate being with you guys. These are uncertain, scary, dark, confusing times. But it's more tolerable knowing that I'm here with you guys. And I think from the comments I get, you guys feel the same way. So we'll be back tomorrow with a regular update video. Until then, take care, everyone.